The audits has only to be checked and addressed for the next re-audit. So we give them the minimum amount of time they need to implement this. And finally, if they change this, for example, this get and post request to no more cardholder data in this web server log files, then it's okay because they addressed it. One of the policies in requirement 12, and again I would refer you to the links I provided, one of the requirements is that you have to implement a security incident response management, and each incident which happened inside the company and was not fraudulently misused outside, you can address with your own policy and change. If there was an insider attack that someone is stealing the data, of course you must report it. But this was no compromise, it was only an incident, and if you address it that way, it's no problem.
Yes, but that's the question. What happens if the company doesn't report it and somehow Visa or MasterCard discovers it? Are there some obligations regarding that?
If Visa and MasterCard see that he is not compliant to the standards, there are the penalties. I mentioned that Visa and MasterCard, or the PCI Security Standards Council, are regulating in their programs, for example, also the penalties. So they can, of course, put penalties on these persons, or get a new deadline to say until this date you must have implemented each requirement correctly, and an auditor will independently check this. The other option is that they disconnect him. So this is also possible. And if you are disconnected from one of the card schemes, normally you are out of the business because you must provide a service, the full service from one hand. And if you can't provide, for example, Visa or MasterCard, you are out of the game. So this is how they can address this.
One question.
Yes.
In the beginning of your presentation, there was a slide about example merchant with about 3 years worth of credit card data and 20 million euro of damage.
Yes.
It looks like it was a slide for bankers, not for Chaos Computer Congress. It's a little bit over-exaggerated. The figure of fraud damage is exaggerated in this slide.
The assumption here is that all the 10,000 compromised cards are fraudulently used.
Yes. Assumption in this slide is that somebody for 3 years steal it daily.
You can store the cards for 3 years in your database. If it's only 10,000 transactions, you have 10,000 tracks in your database.
Yes, but they expire. Cards do expire, and this exaggerates your situation, well, several times. So it is a sort of paranoia which you are selling for bankers, not here. And that's a sort of complaint, not a question.
To address your assumption, correct, is if you store the last 3 years, a card has an expiry date normally for 3 years. Let's assume only 10% of this is compromised, 1,000 cards. You have again a fraud of 2 million euros.
Yeah, 10 times less.
A small merchant cannot compensate that. It simply will be disconnected and out of the game.
If 10 times difference is about the same, can I take 90% of your money from your pocket right now?
Yeah, okay.
Another question about the standard. From what I understand, PCI is only implemented by credit card companies.
Yes.
Are you aware of any similar standards for other card-based schemes like ATM card, electronic cash payment schemes?
Of course, you have standards for them which are defining how you have to secure this. The payment card industry data security standard is addressing e-commerce transactions, point-of-sale transactions, and mail order, phone order transactions with credit cards. So this is only addressed here. You have, for example, for the German debit card, you have the ZKA standards which are addressing security features, and some other implementations, but that's not part of this lecture.
I guess the problem starts very earlier, and your auditing is really nice. But we have seen in your lecture that the CEO comes and said, so, yeah, but I need access to all the data, and we all know our CEOs. They have 4 PDAs, 5 notebooks, and they want all data on the notebooks, on their PDAs, and maybe on their sailing ships in the Adria and on their second flat somewhere. And all IT managers and administrators have the problem that you have processes that are functioning and they are secure. And
Yes.
then your CEO comes and says, oh no, I need access, we can't do this so. And that's the point where da führt sich das ab absurdum. And we all, also IT managers, administrators should become a tool to kick out their CEOs to say, go out, go to your office, browse some porn, let me do it right
It's
and secure.
It's addressed here in the requirement 12, the information security policy. There is a requirement that the management has to sign this statement duly. So they must sign the statement that this information has to be protected in a data security standard compliant way. So if something happens, the management can't say, oh, we had no clue that this happened. I mean, if he signs that the company will protect the data with this standard, and the CEO is, for example, the one who signed it and is storing the data in an unsecure way, the problem will be him and not the administrator. So this is addressing already this problem.
Thanks.
How do I do single-click shopping without storing the CCV2?
That is recurrent transactions. You can do something like abos and recurrent transactions. You have at the first time you have to send the CVV because it's in mail order, phone order transaction, and at the next times they send only the different data without the CVV2, and the acquirer gives an approval because he says, okay, the flag for recurrent transaction is set. It's still in the time frame which we defined as correct, and he can do the shopping. But the problem is not so much your one, because you can of course deny this transaction and get the money back if there is fraudulent use. So I mean, credit card transactions are really nice because you can give them back.
So, but the time frame is unlimited in that case. But that's legal then.
No, we can get into details later. I can show you the standard which is defining this.
Okay, thanks.
It's a secure way.
Hello. These pen tests are periodic.
Please?
So these penetration testing, it's periodic, and to companies that are already PC 1.1 compliant. So how can they be PC 1.1 compliant and still be running stuff like Red Hat 6 or SUSE 7.0?
Most of these security gaps have been popped up at the workshops to prepare an audit or discuss about the offer, or when the first audit happened. When the first audit was conducted, we have a checklist of what is compliant and what is not. And what is not compliant, you have to address with an action plan. You have to target each requirement to say, okay, we are not compliant to this one. We have to spend so many hours on it, so we need 3 weeks to fix it. And after 3 weeks, this requirement will be compliant. The auditor will recheck this with a re-audit. And if finally each requirement is checked, they get the compliance status if they have the mix of security scan and audit compliant. The audit has to be done annually. and the scan, depending on the level of classification, must be done quarterly or also annually. So most of the problems have been before or at the first audit.
And how many re-audits can they fail before they are kicked out of PC standard?
It's not a kick out. I mean, you are compliant to standard or not. If you're not compliant, you are fully responsible for the fraud that happens. If you are compliant to the standard, you can gain a waiver and say, okay, we have been compliant to the standard, we did really our job in a serious way, but still some zero exploit, I don't know, whatever can happen, happened, and they say, okay, you forced us to implement the standard and put a lot of money into the security. The benefit, of course, is that the card schemes say, okay, this fraud happened, but you did your job very well, so we take the costs, you get the waiver. But this depends on the decision of the card scheme. It's the natural interest of a processing company to get this standard. And the card schemes are making pressure to get everyone compliant. So you have no choice on the long run.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, then again, thank you. And